Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Good. Well, I'm Mitch Teplitsky from the Language Conservancy in Bloomington, Indiana, and this is Doris Time. She's also my wife. Let's get that straight right from the beginning. And Doris is also working for the Language Conservancy now. I'm originally from New York City. I'm not a linguist. I'm not Native American. I'll tell you why I am here in a short time, and we have a bit of a personal story that I think will be, of interest, and that sort of supports the work that we're all doing here. But what I want to do today, how much time do I have, Alina?
Till about 4:30, actually. Okay. About an hour, just under an hour.
Great. Well, first I want to say that the executive director and founder of the Language Conservancy, Will Maya, was scheduled to be here today, but he's been traveling extensively, and although he did come back to Bloomington, he was probably in no shape to actually come up here, and we convinced him that we would like to come in his place. He sends his apologies, and he's terrific, but I think we can step in and do the job. And yeah, so let's start by, I'm going to show you a short video. We have a bunch of video to show you because I think that will be fun and informative. We'll start by showing a short video that's kind of a promo video of some of the work that we do. And then I'll talk a little bit more about a little bit of the history and an overview, tell you more about what the Language Conservancy does. And I also want to focus on some of the work that's ahead, that we're getting into some exciting new projects that nobody really knows about. You guys will be the first to know about. And as I said, I want to talk a little bit about our own sort of personal story and then open it up to have a conversation, so it's more two-way. So let's start with, this is a 5-minute video. We'll come back and we'll show this.
There has been a
Can you shut
place.
this? Sorry about that. Okay. So the Language Conservancy is a nonprofit organization. We're based in Bloomington, Indiana, and our mission is to help revitalize Native American and other endangered languages. It was formally founded in 2005. I think we're best known for working with Lakota and the Lakota Summer Institute, which is a 3-week language training program that will be entering its 12th year this upcoming year. And really the Language Conservancy is an outgrowth of the Lakota Language Consortium, which is our sister nonprofit. Really, it's the same staff, but the Lakota Language Consortium was started in 2002 to focus on revitalization work with the Lakota. It was founded by really a partnership between two men, Will Maya and Jan Urich, who is, both were linguists and at the time were graduate students at Indiana University in Bloomington. And they formed a partnership wanting to do more hands-on work in the field to work with language revitalization. Jan has a very interesting personal story, how he basically he's from the Czech Republic, and he's a remarkable linguist and a remarkable man. And you know, he got involved in Lakota back when he was a teenager in the Czech Republic, and became enamored of the language, and has a kind of remarkable personal story of coming to the United States with no money in his pocket and hitchhiking across the United States to meet actual Lakota speakers. And many years later, he became really an unparalleled linguist who has developed what a lot of times I hear described as the gold standard of Lakota language teaching materials, dictionary, grammar books, language apps, etc. Anyway, back to 2002, Will and Jan formed this partnership. They started the Lakota Summer Institute, which invited people who were interested in teaching Lakota, and that drew, I don't know how many people came for the first year, probably a couple of dozen. Last year we were up to about 150 people. As a result of that Summer Institute, other tribes approached Jan and Will to ask for, could you help us with our work? Could you help us develop materials? Can you help us organize language training institutes? So in 2005, the Language Conservancy was formally established, and with a focus on doing this kind of work for other languages. So fast forwarding to now, we are working, it's changing and it's growing even in the year since I've been with the Language Conservancy. I think when I started it was about 15 languages, and now I've heard Will talk about 20 languages. We continue to work with Lakota. We work with Crow in Montana. This year will be the 6th Crow Summer Language Institute. We are working with Omaha Ponca. We'll be doing a 2nd annual Omaha Ponca Summer Institute in Nebraska this summer. We are starting for the first time a summer institute for the Acoma Keres language in New Mexico, which is really exciting, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that because I've been now with the Language Conservancy sort of on the ground floor of when that project has started, so I know a little bit more about how these things develop. So those are examples of languages that are quite comprehensive. That is, the work that we're doing is quite comprehensive. We're doing these summer language institutes, but we also do the rapid word collection with linguists to help record the language from the surviving speakers. Out of that we develop dictionaries, out of that we develop textbooks, and working with these materials we then have the institutes. The long-term goal, of course, it's a multi-year comprehensive effort to ultimately prepare teachers from the community to be able to teach the language to young kids in immersion schools, perhaps, and keep the language alive. Every language, of course, has their own story, and maybe in the conversation, to the best that I can tell you a little bit more about some of the specific language work. But that's an overview of what we do, although I'm actually forgetting one important aspect, which is really the work that I do, and that is the advocacy and public relations work. So I'm the public relations director, so what does that mean? In part, it means that I help communicate to the individual language communities about the work that we do, so we can get the word out, and we can let people know that we have these materials, that we have these trainings. And we do a lot of that on social media, and we do newsletters. When we have summer institutes, we try to get media. We try to bring attention in a positive way, you know, to get the word out about the work that we're doing. It's not about, and by the way, the work isn't about us, it's about what the community is doing. So we try to be very, very focused on, you know, the subject being the community themselves, the teachers, the learners themselves. There's another aspect to the work that I'm doing, however, which is rather new and very challenging and very interesting, and that is I'm trying to get more attention to the larger national and even global language revitalization movement and the crisis of endangered languages. Because as you guys know probably much better than I do, too many people don't even know that we have native languages in this country, and so many people, of course, don't realize that it's a crisis and that there's a problem. So, you know, part of the work that we're doing now is to try to get more national and even international attention for this work. And what does that mean? It means getting articles or television or media attention, and what's the outcome of that? We hope it will help, you know, perhaps change some policy. It can help raise funds so that tribes can do more of this kind of work. You know, and there's one specific direction right now that we're getting into. I'll leap ahead. I was going to leave this for later, but I'll get right into it now. The work that we're starting to do that's quite new and exciting is we were in New York City last month, and we met with the United Nations. The United Nations next year is going to be leading a major global initiative called the 2019 International Year of Indigenous Languages. It's going to be spearheaded by UNESCO. And the United Nations invited us to develop a proposal for a project that would tell the story of endangered language loss and some of the possibilities of how we can protect and perhaps revitalize some of these languages. So it's not just a story of language loss, but it's actually, we're trying to provide some hope and look at some case studies. The particular project is going to be, and this could change, but the particular project that we have proposed would be a big installation, like a video wall, that would premiere at the United Nations to coincide with the launch of this 2019 Year of Endangered Languages. But we want it to be a traveling exhibit that would then travel to universities around the country and to sites in other countries as well. The UN gets 1 million visitors a year, but even more importantly, I think, is that there's 11 million followers on their Facebook page, and they have a tremendous social media reach. But even more important than that, it's about getting the media attention and generating excitement and, you know, generating interest on the local level wherever we take a project like this. Now, we have to raise the money for that. So, but we think we can, and I just wanted to share with you this story because it's why are we doing this? We're doing it because even though until now the Language Conservancy has focused exclusively on working with Native American languages, the long-term mission for us has always been to save as many of the world's endangered languages as possible. So this partnership with the United Nations allows us to bring more attention to, first of all, we're able to bring more attention to the work that we're doing with Native American communities here in the US. And it also hopefully opens the door for us to be able to provide some of the services for languages and communities outside the US. So that's kind of exciting, and you know, that just loops back to why does the Language Conservancy have a public relations director, me, to do that. Now, being that I'm from New York City, I had the contact at the UN, and I think that's been, you know, obviously that's been helpful, and it just illustrates that at the end it's all about personal relationships. And so actually I asked Elena just before I started talking, you know, how she got involved with this, like with this work, and then why this conference, and she told me, you know, it was a chance random encounter in an elevator with one person. So, you know, that's that kind of dovetails with how I got into this work. Let's see if we can start by showing another video.
Does anybody in the room knows how to?
See, we can save the world's endangered languages, but we can't show a video
The
from
file
the
you want to
computer.
open right there?
Which one do you want?
The one that's highlighted?
Show the TLC.
Is LSI file March, is that the one?
Actually, it's
right
going to be another one.
Yes.
there? Okay, right click on it and then go to open with.
Right click.
Open with.
Open with.
Oh, shit.
That might work. Oh, that's what you tried before. Go ahead and close that. VLC with video player would probably work better. Go to open with and go down to VLC video player when you, right there. That'll work better. It'll load. The little things.
The little code came out now.
No, just
Hello, hello. 저기 하. 저기서 저기 하.
Great. Thank you.
The indigenous languages of America are on the brink of extinction. Every 5 months, another Native American language is lost forever. Only 2% of Native Americans are fluent in their language. 9 out of 10 speakers of their language are more than 65 years old. In 1879, the U.S. government began a policy to eliminate Native American cultures and languages. By doing this, the government believed full assimilation into the new American society could be realized. In school, Native American children were not allowed to speak their language and were punished when they did. From having soap stuck in their mouths to being given only bread and water for a week. The goal was simple: to remove the Native American identity, the culture, self-esteem, pride, and language. Today, every Native American language is endangered. Many tribes have fewer than 10 speakers remaining. We are in a race against time.
There's so many issues here on the reservation with drugs and alcohol, suicides. I think there's just so much that we can learn from our own language, and the fact that our language is always here with us, and that we've had just this big gap where it hasn't been there. And it really kind of left us at a loss for what to do, how to conduct ourselves in our own communities with our own families and everything. And I don't think the language is the only way that we can bring us back to being a really respectful and productive society, but I think it could help a lot.
One language is lost every 5 months. This means the identity and history of a tribe is lost every 5 months. Gone. Forever. Prior to European contact, 500 Native American languages existed. By 1675, only 450 languages remained. By 1800, only 400 languages endured. The rate of loss continued to increase as by 1820, only 350 languages were left. By 1835, just 300 languages existed. Only 250 languages remained by 1850. Just before the start of the 20th century, when the U.S. government began the policy to eliminate native cultures, 200 languages existed. Today, 125 of those are extinct. Only 75 Native American languages remain. It's estimated only 25 languages will remain by 2040. Can these endangered languages actually be saved? Is there a way to preserve these cultures before they are gone forever? There is a way to make this happen, and there is an organization that is already making this happen. The Language Conservancy. The Lakota Nation, They were struggling to keep their language alive. Starting in 2004, the Language Conservancy began working with them. Today, we're working with over a dozen tribes, with many more seeking our assistance. The Language Conservancy has proven languages can be saved. The Language Conservancy developed a fully integrated learning system. This integrated learning system includes workbooks, dictionaries, textbooks, children's books, audio programs, preschool immersion programs, kindergarten through 12th grade language learning programs, games, mobile apps, and software programs. And even the dubbing of the Berenstain Bears cartoon series were created to help save and rejuvenate the language.
More and more people are losing the language, and less people are speaking it.
Today, we're working with tribes across the country, helping to restore these silenced voices. The Language Conservancy is America's leading nonprofit organization in tribal language revitalization. Our education team trains language teachers and helps establish immersion schools. We conduct summer institutes in each language. Our focus is on saving an irreplaceable American asset, the voices and knowledge of our Native American tribes. This work is only possible through the generous gifts of people like you. Funding is needed to pay for teachers, classrooms, workbooks, dictionaries, mobile apps, and more, with even more Native American tribes. Most importantly, we can start working with other Native American tribes whose languages are about to disappear. With your support of the Language Conservancy, languages can be saved. Together, we can restore silenced voices.
So obviously, this is a fundraising video, so I just want to acknowledge that. And you guys are not the audience that this was primarily intended for, but I thought it would still be interesting for you to see it, because this is part of the work that we do. We do go around the country and show this to groups of people, and you would be, well, I was surprised how effective a video like this is to people who are perhaps sympathetic to Native American culture, but the statistics and the backstory, it's new to them, and they're moved by this. So, yeah, I do want to mention a little bit more about the funding, in case you guys are wondering. About a third of the money that the Language Conservancy receives comes from grants. About a third comes directly from contracts with tribes themselves. Some of the tribes have the resources to pay outright for this work, and several don't. In those cases, we have a grant writing team. They're really good, and they write grants to raise the money for the tribes. So it's pretty amazing, actually. I've not seen a model like that. And they're very good at what they do. About, I'd say, a quarter of the funding comes from sales of the materials, the books, the apps, especially to schools, in bulk orders. And I guess about 2 years ago, the organization started an effort to start raising support from individual donors, and that's why this video was created. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out for you. I'm not, like I said, I'm not the executive director. I'm not privy to exactly the line items, but that's my understanding of how the money works. And one of the biggest challenges I see here with this work is, like any nonprofit that I'm aware of, is lack of resources. There's more demand. There's a lot of demand for the work that we do, but not everybody can pay for it. Or we can't always. In some of the work that we do, we've done pro bono, but we can't do that for everybody because people have to get paid and the materials have to be produced and so on. So I welcome any questions about that topic as well as any other topic. Let me show you some of the materials that were in the video that you guys can comment. Read through. This is the Lakota Grammar Handbook, which I described, I've heard called many times the gold standard. It's a pretty amazing book. Bayan. These are examples of children's textbooks, not textbooks, sorry, children's picture books for different levels, different languages. This is the Lakota Berenstein Bears. You can also watch it online. This is Rising Voices. This is a 1-hour documentary about the efforts to try to save the Lakota language that was produced for public television and aired on public television about 2 years ago. But we're still showing it at universities and film festivals, and this has been, you know, a helpful advocacy piece for us, again, to bring attention to the crisis of endangered languages and to also give some hope about the work that we and other organizations are doing to try to save the languages. So sometimes we'll also show this film followed by like a fundraising effort to try to help people support the work. These, you can't see them here, but these are lists. I didn't mention this, but not surprisingly, a lot of the training, increasingly the training materials that we're doing are being delivered electronically on mobile apps and computers. So this is a list of some of those apps. We have dictionaries in apps, we have vocab builders, we have something we're calling media players, which are basically virtual augmented reality apps, which you can point your phone at a book and the phone will identify and speak the word in the voice of a native speaker. Young people really like it, and we're doing more of that. We produce these materials in-house. It's pretty amazing. I was amazed when I first, interviewed for the job at the Language Conservancy that this small office in Bloomington, Indiana was actually, not just studying and recording, but actually producing all these materials. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that, but you certainly can come up and take a look at this stuff. I want to talk also just a little bit more about what we've been doing with Lakota, since it is the biggest segment of the work that we do. So there's a couple of new things going on. One is we're in the final stages of releasing a big platform, I would call it, that's going to live on the web and also have a mobile companion. It's called Awoksepe. I hope I pronounced that correctly. My one of the linguists was training me to say I kept saying it wrong. Awoksepe. We hope to release that by the summer, and we think it's going to bring together all these different dictionaries and vocab builders and sort of everything under one roof. So if you follow the work that we do, you'll hear more about that, where we're pretty excited about that. The other thing that we've been doing is, for the last 2 years, but it's been accelerating, is for Lakota, we've been going around the country and we've been doing what we call Lakota Language Weekends, which are these intensive 2-day introduction to Lakota trainings. It started on sites on the reservations in the Dakotas, like Rapid City or Sioux City, but it's spread to, most recently, New York City. We've also done it in LA, San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, and it's been very interesting and exciting to see that. I personally, we set up the last one in New York City, and I think we had over 200 people want to take it, and we only had a capacity for 80. And this isn't to brag about the fact that we attracted so many people. It's to say that there is such a pent-up demand and excitement for this work, and we found that bringing the work on the road. Of course, in a weekend, nobody's going to learn fluency in a weekend, but the idea is that number one, it's a start, and it gets people excited, and they continue their education, through their own self-learning with the materials, or they can come to a summer language institute. But what I've also really seen with my own eyes now is that the community itself has been organizing around these weekends. Like in New York City, they established a meetup group that's I think up to almost 80 people now, including mostly people who attended the weekend, but also others. And they are looking for a space, and they're looking to continue their language learning on their own. And I think that's really cool and important because, you know, what we can do is we can get the ball rolling, we can sort of germinate this, but it's got to be, the work's got to continue on the ground in the local community. So yeah, I think the weekends have been very, very helpful. Now, actually I want to show it now. I'm going to show one more video, 2 minutes. I'll show you what a Lakota language weekend actually looks like. This is a news report. Show the, this one. No, excuse me, the Denver one. This was recorded a few months ago in Denver. That's not it. Sorry for the delay.
Press play, see if it works.
Okay, try it again. We have a backup. Oh no. Try the
VLC doesn't work. Didn't you have it streaming on the website?
We do also have it streaming.
Yeah, all you do is hit play there.
Try this one.
Those are all 4Ks. They look like they're just the hyperlinks rather than the actual files. Go back down to Chrome once.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, pull the window
It's on
on.
here.
Oh,
Easily,
sorry. Oh.
easily. Okay, I think we figured it out.
Well, people who speak Lakota are becoming more rare. One report says just 2,000 Lakotas remain. That's down from 6,000 a decade ago. Now an effort is underway to try and stop that decline. 9 News photojournalist Brian Wendland shows us the language is being taught right here in Denver.
So we have Egnake, Ungumbi.
Lakota was the only language Naomi Last Horse knew as a child.
It was always weaved into everything that we've done, from cooking to starting a fire to having a good time.
Now, estimates tell us she's one of just a couple thousand people who still speak it fluently.
Some of them that I call warriors are the ones that held on to the language.
Naomi is trying to keep the language alive. She travels the country with the Lakota Language Conservancy, hosting crash courses for beginners.
There's a difference between Lena, Henna.
She's spending this weekend at the University of Denver, teaching people like Callie Wolf.
I didn't grow up learning the language, so I felt really compelled to come out this weekend and try to learn as much as I can.
Callie became interested in learning Lakota after moving to Denver a few years ago.
And I had a little bit of an identity crisis, trying to figure out who I am. And I feel a lot of people that are urban natives kind of feel that way.
When she has children, Callie wants to make sure they never go through that.
I would like to be able to speak fluently so that they have an easier time learning.
These workshops are a good first step. But Naomi says that face-to-face learning is where people really pick up the language.
Lakota is a social language. You have to have another person to speak with. Huh.
If she can help save her language, Naomi says she'll be keeping more than just a set of words alive.
It means your identity. It means the color of your skin, your hair. It says a lot about your customs, your tradition, your culture, your heritage, everything.
Brian Wendland, 9 News.
So yeah, that's both a glimpse into Lakota Language Weekend, and it's a glimpse into the kind of work that I do, because I set these up, and we do them, not to just to accumulate video clips, but because they're helpful both for the local community. It seems like the people who participate in these workshops really appreciate the fact that people care and are excited about it. And this material, helps us when we write grants for the communities, to say, hey, this is exciting and this is really happening. So that's why we do that kind of work. I'm going to show you now. I told you before that I wanted to speak just a little bit more about the Yakima Keres project because it's an example of a big, comprehensive revitalization effort that's on a fairly new stage, and I've been witness to it since I started working. It started last year with the rapid word collection process, where we sent in 3 or 4 linguists who spent 2 weeks with about 30 elders who are still fluent in the language. I heard about 50 or 60 people still speak the language fluently in that community. And just about 6 weeks ago, we launched, as a result of collecting those words, we launched a beta version of the first dictionary, the Yakima Keres Dictionary, which we're now getting feedback on, and we'll make revisions. And then this summer is going to be, as I said, the first Keres Language Summer Institute, and we, like in most other institutes, we have 2 tracks, one for absolute beginners, learners, and then we have another track for people who are aspiring teachers. So that's been interesting, and I'll show you just a minute, again, a TV clip about what that looked like.
This group of Yakima Pueblo elders are recording thousands of words in their native Keres.
Our language is our identity. Our language is our livelihood.
A group of about 40 elders on the Pueblo is now working to preserve the language that they feel is quickly disappearing.
And that is a very big concern of many of our elders in the community, the loss of our language.
The number of elders who are fluent gets smaller every year, and many of the young people only speak English, something that doesn't sit well with this group.
The language is the key to the culture, the tradition, and the spirituality. That without the language, it becomes almost impossible for those functions to continue.
They've teamed up with the Language Conservancy to record their language, create a dictionary, and teach kids on the Pueblo how to speak it fluently. The project is ongoing for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
Something these elders tell me will be worth preserving their culture.
And we look down from above or wherever that, yes, our language is still strong and going.
On the Yakima Pueblo, I'm Sandra Ramirez, KOAT Action 7 News.
So that's a little glimpse into that effort. I want to just wrap up, our talk. I'd like to leave time for questions and conversation. I just want to say a little bit about, Doris and I, because, as I said, I think it's helpful to know who is standing up in front of here and talking to you guys. I was a documentary filmmaker before moving to Indiana to take this job. And my first film was working in Peru. I was making a documentary about a Quechua speaker, an indigenous language speaker from Peru who was an immigrant to New York City, and we became friends, and I wanted to tell her story of returning to Peru. And in Doris's hometown, I met her in 2002 because although I spoke Spanish, I didn't speak Quechua, and I needed somebody to help me do interviews with elder women who were only speaking Quechua. And I was introduced to Doris. And several years later, we got married. I'll leave out a lot of the stories in between. She came to the United States in, what year was that? 2007. Wow, time flies. And Doris did not speak English, and today she is fluent in English. And in 2011, she got a scholarship to get a master's in Latin American studies from New York University. And the reason she got that scholarship is because she spoke Quechua. She got a grant, a language, what was the formal name of it?
FLAS.
The FLAS grant. So the reason I mention this is for a couple of reasons. Well, one is, you know, we're here today in a way because of Quechua, because of my random encounter with Doris in a tiny little remote town in the Andes of Peru. That led me to, in a way, to this work, because after that, my film came out. It was called Soy Andina, and we actually showed it here last year, right? That film took me to a lot of universities that are dealing with language and culture, and that's basically how I learned about the Language Conservancy. So Quechua led me to Native American language. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that because there's more to that. But you know, it's interesting because now the Language Conservancy, because of Doris again, has an opportunity to get involved with Quechua, again, because of personal relationships. Doris was in Peru in December. I'll let her talk about this if she'd like, where she met Quechua linguists, and now we're in discussions to, you know, develop grants and perhaps do a dictionary or an app, or maybe organize some kind of language training for Quechua. And so it's kind of beautiful example, I think, of how, you know, the indigenous languages of Latin America and South America have, on a very personal basis, brought me to Native American language and culture, and how, in a way, this organization is trying to bridge that gap, and in ways that I don't know how it's going to all unfold, but it seems like a good thing that we're, you know, all kind of under one roof, and we can learn from each other and work together. So that's kind of my thinking about it. Anyway, I really appreciate your attention. I wish, you know, I find that it's, you know, this work is, at the end of the day, it's emotional and it's personal, and it's about identity and culture. And for me to just talk about it, you know, and not truly be able to share the experience of it is a little daunting. But I hope that gives you a little bit of more awareness about the work that we're doing, and I'd love to hear your questions and comments. And by the way, we'll be here for the rest of the conference. We just arrived a short time ago, so I'm really looking forward to meeting you all.
Good.
Hi.
You mentioned it was Acoma Caris, and I know that Caris is spoken in 5 of the pueblos of New Mexico. Yeah, Laguna, Acoma, Santo Domingo, Kiwa, Cochiti, and then there's one more.
Laguna?
San Felipe.
Okay.
San Felipe, yeah, 5 of them. I used to live up there. So, that Caris Language Institute, is it extended also to the other pueblos, not just specifically Acoma?
It is.
Okay, and the second question would be, is it open to the public? Because, you know, as a Pueblo person,
yes,
they've always told us, no, you can't have outsiders.
Yes.
And they're actually opening it up to be a public event, or...
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and
That's
again,
mind-blowing
I cannot speak for the community or the pueblo. I don't know enough about it. I don't have enough of the personal relationships. I can tell you that one of the reasons why we made an effort to respectfully, you know, first of all, when we bring the cameras or we bring the press, we ask permission first. We don't just like surprise people. And they were receptive to doing that. And when we got the stories out there, I think it really got the local community excited and say, wow, people really are interested in this, and they were excited about it. And I think also the particular community that we're working with there, it's the Acoma Department of Education, which is led by, well, the gentleman you saw briefly in the TV report, Stan Holder, who I believe is Cherokee himself. but he's pretty progressive, and he's you know, he wants to reach out and you know, open things up. Now, at the same time, you know, I've gotten a couple of emails from, or I've seen Facebook posts from people who are expressing resentment.
Yes.
You know, that
That's
this
right.
is sacred and that it shouldn't be open to elders. And that's not for me to, you know, really comment on, but I mean, I'm not gonna, of course, tell you that everything that we do is received with, you know, great joy by every single person in the community. It's an ongoing struggle, but I can say with integrity that the people that I work with and the people that founded the organization have a great deal of sensitivity and integrity about, they're super sensitive about this issue, to the degree that it actually sometimes impedes on my own job, which is to try to tell the story and open it up and share the story with the outside world. Actually, sometimes my own colleagues say, no, you can't do it. You know, you can't do it. We have to be very careful. We have to be very respectful.
Well, that's why I was so shocked when I actually saw on Facebook the little blurb about the Karis Summer Language Institute. And, you know, I used to live up there, and because I'm not a Karis speaker and I'm not a member of any of the Karis speaking pueblos, when my kids were going to school there at Santo Domingo, they have an elementary and a middle school. They had Karis classes. My kids were excluded because they're not of that pueblo, right? So I was wondering if you're getting any massive blowback, even from like the All Indian Pueblo Council. I don't know. I'll take the conversation with you later, but I just understand that this is truly shaking me up.
Well,
it really is.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And you know, because I'm not in the community, it's a challenge for me because we're based in Bloomington, you know, and I'm not there, and I'm not living there, and I wasn't raised there, and I want to know what people really think and feel, and it's, you know, I appreciate all of this, you know, kind of feedback. Yes, sir.
I think just based on the model that the idea is really to empower both fluent speakers and also second language learners in, you know, obviously really sound methodologies so that they can continue to teach in their own communities and sort of have that internal build. In the whole scope of the TLC and kind of where you're going next, in what ways do you see yourselves maintaining that piece of it, maintaining the sort of local education?
Well, the way I would answer that is that, like in the case of Lakota, in the case of Karis, case of Crow, I guess in the case of all the languages where we have these more comprehensive language revitalization efforts, the long-term goal is, like I said before, is to train teachers, especially from the community, and to help them establish or organize schools or immersion schools so that, you know, the kids can learn, because I believe that that's going to be the secret sauce, that's going to be the outcome. So we're trying to train teachers in the best possible, most effective ways who can then carry on the teaching. I mean, that's a very simple answer, but that's my understanding of how, you know, how we visualize this. And then long term, I think as we grow, you know, if we grow, we have the capacity to do more work with more languages and perhaps raise more money or help local communities raise more money, because it's, you know, it's about capacity, it's about funding. So this is a long-term struggle. I'm aware of the fact that we show these 1-minute clips, you know, or little fundraising videos, and it's all nice and neat and scripted and packaged in 90 seconds, and I know that the actual work is much longer, harder, messier, political, challenging. But in my year with the Language Conservancy, I have now met several younger people who, well, in most cases were not actually fluent speakers, you know, themselves, but were second language learners who have actually learned enough to teach effectively. And it does seem like, because when I first started working, I'm like, how is this even possible? Like, is this really, can a language really be saved? And now I would say I'm more, in some cases, yes, I do think it's possible. We'll see. I hope that answers part of your question. Thank you. Yes?
I'm just more curious about the content of sort of the native languages being written down using Roman letters. Sort of like, why is that the best way to record these languages? I suppose and make dictionaries for them. Or like just basically I'm curious about the writing system and why it was developed in this way.
Doris, do you want to jump in here? Do you have something? Do you think you could respond to that? The reason I'm inviting Doris is because she just attended a teacher training. We brought our teachers from 6 different languages together for an intensive teacher training institute, and for the first year, for the first time, Quechua, and Doris was there, and I think that was discussed a little bit.
Wasn't discussed, but what I know is like, for example, in the case of Lakota, they already, I think, was a work like which was done decades ago. It just they take that, they took that, they continue that. Just the linguist, the mayor, Young, just perfected it. Like like there was some issue with the pronunciation. It was not to read, but they just followed what was already done. But I think the person who can reply your question can be Young. If you like, we can maybe connect you with him, and he's going to give you the best answer, definitely.
It's a great question, an important question. It's not one that I'm comfortable yet responding to. I don't know enough, because every language seems to be like, and every project seems to be a different case. So all I can tell you would be kind of anecdotal, but afterwards we can talk more, and I'm very happy to respond to you or put you in touch with the right people, because it's a good question.